Socrates in this book, the Phaedrus, writes about the human soul is like split into it's a chariot that has like two horses. One is an earthly horse, the other is a heavenly horse. The heavenly horse is attracted by like these heavenly things and wants to bring the soul to heaven. The earthly horse wants to bring the soul to death or back to the earth.
Hmm.
And one of the things that like really moves the soul, like the heavenly horse or the heavenly horse is the idea of music and love. Uh, Obviously, some other things that we may not mention because the Greeks were up to some crazy stuff back then and viewed it as like, heavenly. But specifically, they viewed music. And I think, when you look at like, throughout history, you look at the people who have been great with music, guys like, David from the Bible, Kanye, people who like have these kinds of like spiritual movements that are intertwined with music. David obviously invented the Psalms, which is like
Yeah.
super. Kanye at Sunday service. Like it seems like, but both men kind of get tempted by sin afterwards. And I think, do you think as someone who's been in these kinds of spaces, like, is there kind of a spiritual warfare that exists, as a Christian yourself and someone who is a believer of the idea of spiritual war? Do you think there is kind of a
Yeah.
spiritual war that exists for people when they kind of get more and more in the realm of being quote unquote saved, in particular in the creative space? Because I think it's so pronounced in the creative space.
Yeah, for sure. Like, even off of that example, you look at the kind of Davidic type in shadow, and this idea too of when faith becomes firsthand, right? Uh, you can live a secondhand faith. Again, David was anointed, and he got all these victories in battle. He even escaped of death. Like living in a cave, and through that, I strongly believe just from reading, like he had confidence. There's this confidence when you kind of know you got the sauce, and like everything is well, and until it becomes to where your art form is truly speaking, and it gains a track record of sharing truth. These truths begin again when you're trying to draw from heaven and lift people, bring it down to earth, and basically lift people back towards heaven. I think there's a big moment where there's some friction there, from an opposing force, or even from your own flesh. And so I'd say, like, there's a point even in the Psalms and in the songs, like in Psalm 51, right, where David has that Bathsheba encounter, and he faces adultery, he faces his own lust and his disgust, his kind of, even to the point of killing another man, right?
Yeah. It's
And kind of the
unforgivable.
deceit and
It's unforgivable
yeah,
though.
and the deceit and yeah, it's unforgivable, again, by human terms, and the deceit and lies and everything, amalgamation. But it comes to a point where you know you get on your knees, and you kind of come to this point where you can't do anything about it. And there's a vulnerability in that. There's a way that expressed in that way, in kind of the form of a psalm, and the form of a song. Um, it really puts you in a vulnerable position in place for that ascension, or even like the descent, into hell, to then be lifted back up again. It's
Yeah.
it's just like Christology, right? That's being played here, but yeah, that's what I'd say. I see that in music today. There's an ever growing battle. I see it in all the arts, and I think art is the most transcendent way, um, and it's seen in everything, I think, and it holds truth very pure.